As I clutched the pie in my hands, my father's words pierced the air. He instructed me not to return home again. The warmth enveloped her, the scent of pumpkin, her favorite, lingering in the air. I had prepared it the previous evening, following my mother's cherished recipe, the one that called for an extra dash of nutmeg and that peculiar half-teaspoon of maple syrup she always swore by. I navigated through 3 hours of fog to deliver it to her, just as I had done each year before. Thanksgiving had arrived. I found myself within the familiar confines of my home, or so I believed. We had not yet uttered a word of grace. The turkey remained uncarved. The stuffing wafted its warm aroma from the crystal dish, a treasured heirloom my mother unveiled only once a year. There I stood, a smile gracing my lips, the pie firmly in my grasp, when my father's voice cut through the air. Return the $50,000, Claire, or feel free to stay away for good. Initially, I suspected I had misheard him, or that it was merely a distasteful jest. Father was not one to indulge in theatrics, and Thanksgiving was certainly not a moment for drama, not in our family. Or perhaps not until that fateful night. Yet, not a single soul found amusement. Tessa sat across the table, her hands neatly folded in her lap, reminiscent of a somber gathering. Ethan cast his gaze upon the tablecloth. Even my mother, gentle and soft-spoken, turned away from my gaze. I refrained from taking a seat. I was unable to. The pie tray lay in my hands, unexpectedly weighty, as if it carried more than just its contents. I stared at it blankly, as though it held the answers to the chaos unfolding around me. "Pardon me," I said. Father's jaw clenched. "Let's not complicate things unnecessarily. What precisely are you suggesting I am guilty of?" At last Tessa raised her gaze. Her eyes were rimmed with red, mascara clinging to the corners as if she had been weeping for hours. Yet her voice remained steady and clear. "Mother's account. Last month, a sum of $50,000 vanished without a trace, immediately following your assistance in establishing her online banking." My lips parted, yet silence enveloped me. I had indeed assisted my mother with her accounts. She felt a flutter of anxiety at the thought of embracing a paperless existence, a lingering doubt about placing her trust in the cloud. On a leisurely Sunday afternoon, I found myself seated beside her, guiding her through the intricacies of the app, the passwords, and the security questions that lay before us. She meticulously recorded every detail in a small notepad that resided in the kitchen drawer. It has been 4 weeks since that time. 4 weeks. They were now saying that was the moment I took from her. "Is this for real?" I murmured. "Do you really believe I took my mother's money?" Ethan finally spoke, his voice rigid, as if each word caused him pain to utter. We were reluctant to accept the truth. However, the bank verified that the withdrawals were executed through online means. Access was granted to no one else. There is no one else. Everyone but me. I cast my gaze upon my mother. She remained utterly still, neither flinching nor nodding, nor shaking her head. She lifted her napkin and pressed it to her lips, as if a wave of nausea were about to overtake her. In that moment, the realization struck me. The pie, the traffic, the annual tradition, none of it held any significance. I had ceased to be their daughter. I found myself in the position of a suspect. I placed the pie delicately on the edge of the counter. The tin made a soft, muted sound as it met the granite surface. I retrieved my coat from the back of the chair, where I had draped it earlier. I remained silent. "You have until the end of the week," Dad said quietly behind me. "Next we make our way to the lawyer." I held back my tears in the car. I refrained from screaming, cursing, or taking my frustrations out on the films. I just drove, my coat still half-buttoned, the pie remaining untouched on the kitchen counter behind me. The streets lay in serene stillness, illuminated by the soft glow of porch lights and adorned with paper turkeys affixed to windows. On that Thanksgiving night, the air was infused with the rich aromas of gravy and cinnamon, enveloping the entire town in a serene embrace. Everyone but me. I found myself at the familiar roadside inn that I had often glimpsed while traveling into town, yet had never felt compelled to visit. The clerk refrained from inquiring about my reasons for seeking a room on a holiday. I found solace in that small mercy. The air was thick with the scent of aged carpet mingling with the buttery aroma of microwave popcorn. I removed my boots and settled on the edge of the bed, my hands trembling still. At the age of 34, I held the esteemed position of a senior forensic accountant, entrusted with the oversight of millions in corporate audits. Yet, in a cruel twist of fate, my own parents harbored the suspicion that I had stolen from them. What struck me most was the unsettling familiarity of it all. I found myself devoid of any surprise. Not completely. There were subtle indications, small gestures, like the way Tessa would roll her eyes whenever Mom took pride in recounting my promotions. Text once, in a moment that lingers in memory, Dad had posed the question, "Don't you think it's time to settle down?" Sometimes it feels as if my career exists in a realm separate from reality. Even last Christmas, when I had proposed to take on the expense of a new roof for the house, Ethan had grumbled something about my attempts to purchase loyalty. I assumed they were merely jesting. I believed we remained a family. I reclined on the comforter, my gaze fixed upon the ceiling above. I attempted to revisit the moment when my mother requested my assistance with her bank account. Each tap, each login, each password reset. Had I overlooked something? Did anyone else happen to glimpse the notebook we stored in the drawer? The door remained perpetually ajar. It was an opportunity available to anyone. Tessa continued to reside at home intermittently, influenced by her circumstances. Ethan possessed a key to the house. I was the one who guided Mom through the setup, true, but that didn't mean I was the sole keeper of that knowledge. Yet they had placed their faith in it. I thought I had been waiting for my mother to fall ill solely to benefit from her finances. $50,000. As though it were a necessity, as though I would ever entertain such a notion. The vibration of my phone broke the silence. A message penned by Tessa. "We never wished for it to reach this point. Yet you rendered it difficult to place my trust in you. There will be no joyous Thanksgiving this year. I hope you are doing well." Only that. It felt as though I had shattered something precious. It felt as though I were the one in need of offering an apology. I placed the phone face down. In the realm of my professional life, I dedicate my hours to unraveling the intricate web of concealed embezzlement schemes and counterfeit invoices. I understand the appearance of vanishing wealth and the art of shifting blame onto another. At this moment, I found myself cast as someone's fall girl. I gazed at the ceiling until the lights began to blur into one another. If they wished to cast me as the family's criminal, perhaps it was time I embraced the role and began my own investigation. With the dawn of a new day, I rose before the sun had fully claimed the sky. Silence reigns, devoid of any alarm, merely intuition. After years of pursuing corporate fraud, I had learned a singular truth. Wealth never truly vanishes, simply gets redirected. Understanding the initial focus and identifying the beneficiaries is key. I filled a cup with the acrid brew of lobby coffee and set my laptop on the motel desk, ready to dive into the day. My firm has recently been delving into a troubling pattern of financial exploitation targeting retirees with modest savings accounts. These accounts have been mysteriously drained through 3 withdrawals, each carefully crafted to remain just beneath the federal reporting threshold. It wasn't merely a single bank. Rather, one consistently emerged more prominently than the rest. Greenwell Mutual, the Bank of Mother. I had kept my involvement in the investigation a secret from my family. Though it was meant to be confidential, I possessed the necessary clearance to delve into the internal transaction data, and I was well aware of whom to approach. I dispatched a brief note to Miles, the compliance officer in charge of our ongoing case. Merely a name, a span of dates, and a place. In less than an hour, I gathered everything essential: timestamps, withdrawal amounts, and teller logs. 3 withdrawals from my mother's account, each occurring 5 days apart. Initially, the sum is $20,000. Next, the sum of $15,000. Lastly, the sum of $15,000. Every single one conducted face-to-face, rather than through the digital realm. That marked the initial fracture. They charged me with the crime of utilizing online banking, claiming I was the sole individual with access. However, if the funds were collected in person, I assure you it was not I who did so. I accessed the link to the attached security footage. While the resolution may be low, it remains sufficiently clear. The initial video has successfully loaded. Greenwell Mutual, October 10th at 1 p.m. A young woman approached the counter, her nerves palpable as she cast furtive glances over her shoulder. A cascade of golden strands tied back in a sleek ponytail. A gray hoodie, oversized shades. Initially, I entertained the notion that perhaps a proxy had been engaged by someone. A mysterious individual was compensated to take on the role of mother. As the girl approached the camera, she lowered her mask, her voice ready to engage with the teller. Tessa. Despite the grainy feet, that face was unmistakable to me. I had cared for that face, observed it extinguish birthday candles, and weep over unfulfilled romances. She was restless, her fingers drumming lightly against the counter. She presented what appeared to be her mother's ID, and affixed her signature to a document. Her handwriting remained as it was back in high school. I reclined in my chair, the motel light casting a stuttering glow overhead. They had taken more than just the money. The plan had been meticulously crafted. Contemplated the timing. I bided my time, assisting my mother in her transition to the digital realm, only to have that very act serve as a guise for the betrayal that followed. I began watching the second video. October 15th, identical branch. On this occasion it was Ethan, unmasked, devoid of anxious tension, serene and assured. He exchanged playful banter with the teller. He signed off as if he were the rightful owner of the account. The third video features Tessa once more. The same hoodie, various styles of sunglasses. The sheer arrogance of it sent a shiver down my spine. Yet, a crucial element remained absent. How had they managed to obtain Mom's ID and account information? In that moment, a memory surfaced. Just a fortnight prior to assisting my mother with the app installation, she underwent outpatient tests at the hospital. Nothing of great consequence, merely initial examinations. Tessa had graciously offered to spend the night with her. The purse, a steadfast companion, had remained by her side throughout the entire journey. Her ledger of expenses, the records of her financial transactions, the document that grants her the privilege to drive. It all began there. Yet that was not the conclusion. I examined the metadata associated with the account setup. The initial login upon my return from town did not originate from my mother's phone. Rather, it emerged from a tablet connected to the home Wi-Fi. The identical IP address that Tessa employed during her Netflix streaming sessions. The one-time password was dispatched to an alternate email that I had not registered. I researched it. The phone number for recovery was registered to Ethan. They were far from merely careless. They exhibited a certain arrogance. They believed that no one would dare to challenge it. Not if the accomplished daughter was the clear suspect. Not if the entire family united in a single voice. I shut the laptop with a decisive click. This was far more than a mere misunderstanding. It was neither a fleeting moment of despair nor a mismanaged loan that led to this situation. It was an act of deception. They had wielded my affection for my mother as a veil of deception. I secured the laptop bag with a swift motion and reached for the phone. Refrained from contacting law enforcement. Not at this moment. I opted to reach out to my office instead. I requested Miles to provide the printouts of the teller signatures. I require them for the purpose of comparison. With a deliberate motion, I opened my suitcase and retrieved a sleek black folder, reminiscent of those I employed for courtroom presentations. If they sought a villain within the family, I would reveal the true essence of one who meticulously kept records of every transgression. I failed to make a call in advance. I made my way home on Monday afternoon, just as the sunlight cast its familiar golden slant that always graced the days between Halloween and Christmas. The sort of illumination that once imbued the dwelling with a sense of belonging. Not today. The driveway brimmed with vehicles. The SUV belonging to Ethan, Tessa's compact mirror. The aging sedan that once belonged to my mother. There are no guests, only family. I came to a stop at the edge of the road. I sat for a moment, the engine ticking softly, my hands resting on the leather folder in my lap, the keeper of every receipt. Each moment marked. Each deception they believed would go unnoticed. At that moment I took my first step outside. I ascended the porch steps and allowed myself entry. The aroma of chicken broth mingled with the fragrant notes of rosemary, enveloping the house in a warm embrace. The lights in the kitchen glowed softly. The soft hum of voices reached my ears. The rhythmic clinking of cutlery, a laugh that had slipped away from my grasp. In the kitchen, I discovered them all gathered together. Tessa sat gracefully on the counter, with a coffee mug cradled in my hand, legs swaying as if she had returned to the carefree days of her youth at 13. Ethan rested his back against the cool surface of the fridge. With arms crossed, the expression remained a mystery. Mom lingered by the sink, her hands deftly drying the dishes with a rhythm honed by years of routine. Father was gently stirring a concoction on the stove. As I stepped inside, all eyes turned toward me, and time itself seemed to freeze. Silence enveloped the room. I strolled by them toward the island, setting the folder down on the polished wooden surface that once bore the weight of our cookie dough adventures. At that moment I lifted the cover. I whispered, "You thought I took from Mom. Allow me to unveil the true events that transpired." A shift swept through the air. Delicate, as the air thickens before the tempest. I retrieved the initial image I had taken from the bank's surveillance recordings. Tessa, adorned in stylish sunglasses, leans gracefully over the teller's counter, her pen gliding across the form as she signs with intent. October 10th. $20,000, currently unavailable online. Not a silence enveloped the scene, and not a soul stirred, not even her. In the second photo, Ethan is captured smiling, clad in a navy sweater, as he hands over a check. October 15th, 15,000. My voice quivered at the edges, not fueled by anger, but by the weight of restraint. They were familiar faces. These were the individuals who had been a part of my formative years. Tessa's fingers tightened around her mug. She parted her lips, only to seal them once more. I placed the teller slips down gently. Identical branch, identical signatures. I compared them to your handwriting, Tessa. From that note you left on the fridge last week. A moment lingered. At last Tessa found her voice. Her voice seemed more delicate than I recalled. Did you sift through our belongings? I inclined my head with a soft grace. You ventured into your mother's domain. Mom reached for the document, her eyes scanning the print as her hands trembled slightly. Her voice was a whisper when she spoke, nearly imploring. Yet the bank. It was claimed to have been completed online. That is what they believed I had expressed. However, the act of withdrawal was not. Accessing the internet arrived subsequently through a tablet linked to your Wi-Fi network. The account was configured for recovery via an email associated with Ethan's phone number. A hush enveloped the kitchen, reminiscent of softly descending snowflakes. Father paused his stirring. Tessa averted her gaze. Ethan gazed at the floor, as if searching for an alternate reality hidden within its surface. You would allow me to believe that my daughter took something from me, Mother murmured. Her gaze drifted, unfocused, as if searching for something just beyond reach. Perhaps not even I. You instructed me to stay away from home. I urged for silence, even more so. You never inquired whether I was the one responsible. That was the source of the sting, not the allegation, not even the looming presence of attorneys. The lack of inquiry. At last, Tessa turned her gaze in my direction. Her face contorted, not in guilt but in a deep-seated bitterness. You seem to acquire everything you desire, the position, the acclaim, the reverence,